So a little while ago I made a video about the new Alfa Romeo Tonale and Alfa's parent company Stellantis giving the platform to Dodge for the new Hornet, and then allowing both vehicles to be sold in the same market, largely offering the same things at a very different price point. It was a popular enough video for my channel standards, but that video came out as the cars were just easing out into the market. Well, it's the middle of 2024 and both cars have been on the United States market for a bit now, and the Tonale has been on the Euro market for a bit longer already. So now I think it's time to see how the cars are doing sales-wise and see which one is winning, so to speak. And it's the Dodge, by a long shot, in the US. Hornet sales are practically 10-1 against the Tonale, with the Tonale selling just north of 700 units, as opposed to the Hornet selling over 7,000 units in 2024 Q1. What went wrong? How did we get here? Well, let's talk about these two again in a bit of a part 2 to my last video, and let's go into a bit more detail about the Tonale, the Hornet, and Alfa Romeo's future. So, off the bat, let's face it, the Hornet appears to be the winner on the US market, with Q1 sales ending at 7,419 units sold, compared to the Alfa Romeo Tonale selling a paltry 728. Yikes. There's not many performance-oriented CUVs to begin with, but when two of them are the same car, but one's at a cheaper price point and comes with a far better dealer network and support, I suppose it's kind of a no-brainer. Interestingly, the Tonale did surpass the Giulia in sales for Q1, likely due to being new and arguably more practical, while the Giulia has seen little in terms of updates outside a new facelift and some new variations still utilizing their turbo 4-banger, which hasn't seen any real power changes. Although since the end of Q1, Giulia sales now have neared closer to 1,300 for the year. The Stelvio, however, still dominates the lineup in sales, with just shy of 2,000 units moved in 2024 by the writing of this video. And, anecdotally, despite me living relatively close to an Alfa Romeo dealership, I still haven't seen a single Tonale on the road. Meanwhile, I've been noticing more and more Hornets, namely their GT model, which is another thing. The RT model has since been released and carries the RT name, which often invites sales. I imagine Dodge dealers are also somewhat incentivized to sell Hornets as a cheaper alternative to the Durango and to weather the car drought they're in until the release of the new Charger coupe and sedan, which, when released, will likely make up the bulk of Dodge's sales. However, outside of the North American market, the Tonale has actually been doing what Alfa hoped it would do: increase overall sales. Although US Alfa sales continue to drop year after year, European sales have been increasing. The most notable increase is the German market, which saw Alfa sales more than double in 2023 compared to 2022, not to mention a 200% increase of sales of Alfas in their home Italian market. Now, in some fairness, Alfa Romeo carries a lot more heft in the Euro market, as they've sold far more models there than in the US. It's essentially their home market in general. The Hornet is essentially unknown in most countries over there, and the Tonale also comes in cheaper, more base versions that we don't get that allow for a wider audience to purchase them. Despite negative reactions from Alfisti, the Alfa Romeo fans, I imagine the upcoming Junior, which is poised to be cheaper yet, and will be offered in both hybrid and pure EV forms, will increase sales even more. As such, the Tonale in some ways has been a rather successful venture for Alfa Romeo, if you consider the markets. However, Alfa did originally state that they wanted the Tonale to be a class leader in the United States and increase their presence. However, a cheaper copycat, a poor dealer network, and non-existent advertising seems to be placing a large thorn in Alfa's side. Although Stellantis is now considering chopping some brands in some markets, Alfa Romeo doesn't yet seem to be one of them, as they continue to invest in them, with a new Stelvio on the way and hopes for a new Giulia still in the game. Not to mention completely new models as well. As long as the Tonale sells well somewhere, this, I believe, will increase the chance of something really exciting coming down the pipeline and reaching the American market. Meanwhile, the Hornet, interestingly, is being considered a sales flop in the US, likely, I imagine, due to sales not being as expected. With that said, I'd hesitate to say that it's selling poorly, as it arrived just in time to see buyers in the market it's aimed at not being all too interested in buying new cars yet, especially as Stellantis continues to face reliability issues with new models. Not to mention, Dodge's core fan base is used to hefty V8s in the form of muscle cars or hopped up Durangos, even if the Hornet RT is one of the better performing, on paper anyway, CUVs on the market. The Dodge fanbase doesn't really seem to care. If Dodge really plans on making the GLH version, they probably better get on it and try to make it appear more like a hot hatch. After all, the original Dodge GLH was the Omni GLH, an American hot hatch that competed with the Golf GTI. I think fans of Dodge and hot hatches could get behind that, and honestly, the RT should be marketed more like that too. I think it'll be interesting to see how the Hornet fares once the new Chargers come out, however. On a more positive note, I've been surprised to see Hornet buyers opting for the more fun colors. I've seen plenty of the more mundane blacks and grays, but I've seen the reds, blues, and even the gold color out on the roads. Quite often, even. I'm impressed, actually, and I like to see that the Hornet's fun colors, which are really quite nice, are being embraced by the buyers. That gives me some hope for more fun colors like Acapulco Gold to be released in the future, both on the Hornet and other Dodge offerings, and heck, just on more cars in general. I've seen a nice variety of colors in new cars lately, and what's nice is to actually see them on the road and people buying them. As for the sales, however, the Hornet seems to be winning what I dubbed in my original video as a performance crossover war. To which, as a bit of an aside, what do we call these? Hot CUVs? Hot overs? Hot crosses? Instead of a hot hatch, is it a hot cross? Sure, why not? I'm adopting it as the name now. And speaking of hot crosses, there's the Alfa Romeo Jr. to mention again really quickly, as it's the next Alfa Romeo car. The first version is an all-electric car, dubbed a crossover by some, but given its dimensions, height, and track performance, and its weight even, it's really just a hatchback, it's a straight-up hatch. Despite questionable front-end styling and a plethora of hate from the terminally online Alfisti, for a multitude of reasons I may cover in a different video, I still feel it could be an essential car for Alfa to bring to the States, if only in the sense I think a wider model range and cheaper models will more likely get buyers into the vacant showrooms. Primarily because it doesn't seem like the Tonale is really getting that job done, but with the Hornet existing at all, I wonder how much of that is Alfa Romeo's fault and how much of that is Stellantis' fault. It's probably honestly a bit of both of them. Hopefully they can pull it together before Alfa Romeo pulls out of the States again, inevitably right before they release something really cool that we'll wish we got. It's happened before, and if Stellantis can't get Alfa on track in the States, it will happen again, even if they're selling well overseas. Thanks for watching. And as always, remember to stay tuned, you and your cars, for more content coming when it comes.